You're listening to the Pens Nation radio show on thepensnation.com. Follow us on Twitter at @thepensnation.
I have one question for everyone. What the hell happened in Hockeytown? The Detroit Red Wings win this game 5-4 tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins in a wild one, as I don't even know what to say. The Penguins outshoot the Red Wings 43-30. Constant back and forth action as the game was tied 2-2 in the second period. Then Evgeny Malkin with a slap shot made it 3-2, and then the third period, Tomas Tatar tied it up at 9:59, and then Todd Bertuzzi at 12:17 made it 4-3 Detroit. But then Craig Adams, of all people, ties it up at 14:17 of the third period, and then in overtime at 4:59, literally, what was it, 0.4 seconds, I think, is when the puck went in the net as it hit off Rob Scuderi and went in. So two pucks off of, Scuderi ran into Mata. That caused a goal. One hit off Scuderi, that went in the goal, and one hit off Oli Mata. So a rough night for that pairing, and just an overall crazy game as, I don't even know what to say, guys. We saw a butt-ending penalty to David Legwand on Malkin. We saw it all tonight, didn't we?
Yeah, a lot of it wasn't good.
No. And we are here with Jesse Marshall, by the way. I'm Andy Hughes. I'm here with Nick Richter is running the board tonight, and we're here with Casey Johnson and Mish as well. And I don't even know where to start with this one. I mean, talk about a crazy game. Daniel Alfredsson with the game-winning goal tonight. Malkin with a couple goals. That was good to see. Craig Adams getting on the board. Lee Stempniak, another goal. We have a lot of background effects tonight.
I think a T-Rex has invaded Misha's house.
That's not me. That is all on Casey.
Okay, Casey's being invaded by a T-Rex.
I'm just sitting here and not moving.
Good. Keep that up. I would like to see the same thing from Scuderi sometimes. Oh, yeah. Wait.
Rob Scuderi taking a lot of heat tonight after just a rough night, to say the least.
It's like Misha's vindication tour from free agency this year.
I don't want vindication, though. I wanted it to work out. This is just a disaster.
I mean, defensive defensemen, though, if his ilk, they generally get better when they get closer to 40, right?
They're supposed to, and I mean, he trended that way. He was a late bloomer to begin with, but maybe we waited a little too long to get him back.
Possibly. But anyways, the Pens lose 5-4, as I said, in overtime. They'll get a point out of it. Detroit gets 2. When a very desperate Detroit team with a lot of injuries. But Jesse, what positives can you take out of this? Obviously, it was a crazy seesaw battle. That we saw the lead change multiple times, kept tying the game up. It was a good battle by the Penguins, but in the end they just fell short and didn't cash in on that big 5-minute power play they had when David Legwand went to the box.
I think there's a couple positives in all reality. I mean, they were down 2-0 on the road, and they played themselves into a huge hole that they were able to dig their way out of. I thought the bottom six was great. I mean, that's what everybody's been talking about this week, is that they haven't been. And I thought that they got a goal out of Craig Adams. Anytime you can do that, I mean, maybe it only happens once every 65 games, but it's depth scoring is important. I thought the continued good play of Lee Stempniak has been fantastic on the top line. The penalty kill was good. It had to be. The parade to the box there, it got a little bit ridiculous, but I thought they did a pretty good job to, at least keep them in the game. And you know what? Realistically, everybody's going to look at this game and say the Penguins lost 5-4, and there's going to be people out there that are going to say Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't good. I really don't think he was bad. I thought this game got out of control a couple times, and he kept them in it. He got hung out to dry in a lot of ways, and I thought that maybe in a year ago or a while back, that's a Marc-Andre Fleury that probably wouldn't have put in a solid performance for the rest of the game with everything that he had to face. So for him to come out, I thought he let in 5 goals, but if he can let in 5 goals and be good, I thought he was.
I'm not the only one who's getting tired of Fleury getting blamed for giving up goals on endless odd man rushes, right?
So annoying. I mean, what the Tatar goal that was I think a 2-on-1, and then that overtime goal that was a 3-on-1. So, and then you had a couple going off Scuderi and Mata's skate. So I mean, I don't really know what Fleury's supposed to do on this.
The thing is, why is the team just a disaster in front of him? If you look back at both Philly games, I mean the Saturday game and just a half of the first period on Sunday, and then this game, the defense just does not look the same in front of him. No,
it certainly does not. And as I said, Mata and Scuderi with a tough night. Mata -3, Scuderi a -2. Just a tough one. That's really, really tough one. And Penguins will have to try to find a way to get back on to their winning ways this weekend, as the schedule doesn't get any easier. Saturday they'll play Tampa Bay. Sunday, St. Louis. They have games with Phoenix, LA, Chicago coming up. So a lot of big tests coming up here. And what do you guys think? Do you think that that's kind of a good thing for this team, facing some of a lot of these great teams and try to get into that playoff mode? With a lot of these teams are very desperate, maybe not as desperate as Detroit, but still all of these teams are trying to fight for the best playoff position that they can. Is that good for this team moving forward, facing some of those teams?
I think so. I mean, the consistency is a major issue right now, and some of the good things we saw against the Stars the other night didn't happen tonight at all. So it's the nightly effort just hasn't been there, and I think you want to play the best teams heading into the tournament, because the Stanley Cup playoffs are the toughest tournament in sports. So anything you can do to get primed up for that, they just got to find a rhythm. They're out of it right now. And I'll say, you mentioned the defense, Andy. Look, and I know that no one in here is going to disagree with me, so there's one common thing we all have. Everybody knows what Paul Martin means to the Penguins. I mean, he's been fantastic, but this right here is what you miss out of Chris Letang, right here. Mm-hmm. This is what Chris Letang does. Some of the problems the Penguins are having are coming from having defensemen that can't play the puck well. And when you get in trouble, when team forecheck ramps up and you get to this tempo, you got to have guys that can skate the puck. You got to have guys on the back end that can move it. You at least have to have guys paired together that, like a Scuderi with a Letang, let Letang do that work. They're missing both of them. And I know everybody knows how good Paul Martin is, but they are missing Chris Letang right now. This is what happens when he's not in the game.
Yep, couldn't agree more with that. Certainly missing Chris Letang, and Letang is still practicing with the team. He rotated with Derek Engelland today in practice, so who knows when he's going to be back. We'll see when he does, but I absolutely agree. Penguins are really, really missing Chris Letang, and you hit the nail on the head right there, Jesse. I mean, they could have used a guy like him tonight, and they need a guy that can play that puck and move it forward. And Paul Martin the same way. I mean, I kind of wanted to talk to you, Jesse, about, I know you wrote in the Trib about Brooks Orpik and the value of a mobile defenseman with him. Now that Matt Niskanen is paired with Orpik, just kind of talk about that, how, Brooks Orpik kind of he wasn't, didn't really make too many major mistakes in my opinion tonight. I didn't hear much of him, to be honest, but he was being paired with Matt Niskanen. Talk about how he just needs a puck-moving defenseman with him. And, we've seen sometimes where they've tried different guys with him and it just hasn't worked out, if it's not a puck mover. I know you had talked a little bit about that in the Trib. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, you look at, Brooks Orpik, last year with Paul Martin, and when you look at their goals for and goals against percentages, they were really one of the best defensive pairings in the National Hockey League from a numbers perspective. And that was especially true in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They were on the ice for a ton of goals for, and they were among, in fact, LA's pairing of Rob Scuderi and help me out, Mish, who was it?
I wasn't even paying attention to what you were saying. Sorry.
That's okay. Who was Rob Scuderi? Who was Rob Scuderi paired with in the playoffs last year?
He was with Voinov a lot.
There he goes. Yeah, thank you. They were actually the best pairing, but Martin and Orpik were right behind them. So obviously no Martin this year. We kind of took a look at Brooks Orpik's numbers. They haven't been good, but they're better when he's playing with Olli Maatta and Matt Niskanen. Now those are two guys that have made everyone they've played with look good. But when you kind of take the numbers and you look at them independently, and we're talking about just puck possession numbers, Corsi numbers, Brooks Orpik and Rob Scuderi, Brooks Orpik and Derek Engelland, Brooks Orpik and Robert Bertuzzo doesn't work. The Penguins, think of it this way: with Orpik and Scuderi together, that pairing's goals for percentage is 11%. So only 11% of the goals that are scored while that pairing is on the ice are goals that the Penguins are scoring. It's abysmally bad. So to be able to split it up, and obviously it didn't help Olli Maatta out tonight any, but to be able to give Brooks Orpik that mobile guy, it allows him to calm the game down. And you mentioned that you didn't even notice him tonight. Well, sometimes for Brooks Orpik, that's the best compliment can give him. Yeah. So just to have that mobile guy opens up so much more for him, and he's so much more patient. And the numbers reflect that as well.
Yeah, certainly do. And again, Brooks Orpik didn't really see much of him tonight, but as you said, that's a good thing. I don't mind that at all. I want to get to the forwards here real quick. Obviously, we have. I don't know if we really got a chance to talk about this, but now Marcel Gottsch is quote unquote the third line setter, and Brandon Sutter. I guess you could kind of call them two third lines if you want to now. Now that Gottsch and Sutter have been broken up, and Gottsch had been on the wing, and clearly, the best thing for this team is for Gottsch to play center, because that's the position he's best at. And if you're going to acquire a guy, you might as well put him in the best position to succeed. So good to see Gottsch playing center, and Sutter too. And I know Casey wants to talk about Brandon Sutter, I'm sure. Brandon Sutter with an assist tonight. Had a breakaway, missed that one, but I really thought he was really good down low behind the net. He was winning a lot of puck battles behind the net, and I think Brandon Sutter is a guy that's really trying to step up his game a little bit, because obviously it's been kind of a rough year for him, ever since the Ryan Kessler trade talk and all of that stuff, and obviously he was involved in that, and there's a lot of questions about it, and some people take this Sutter thing as a demotion to the fourth line, but Casey, just address his play, not only tonight, but just recently. It just seems like he stepped up his game a little bit. And, I really wouldn't call it a demotion. I think it's just kind of splitting up the talent and, letting Sutter get a little chemistry going.
Well, I do think he's had a rough year all year, although he has stepped it up since the trade deadline when it looked like he may have been gone. But, this is the first time in Brandon Sutter's career since his rookie year, that he's not in the top 3 in toughest competition faced for his team. This is also the first year where he hasn't really had solid wingers next to him. He's had over a dozen, I think 18 in total. If you
20 now, Casey.
I'm sorry?
20 now.
Yeah, 20 now. So, Jesse, what do you think of that? How much of this is just a bad year for Sutter, and how much of it is just he doesn't have the supporting cast to help him out?
Well, it's interesting because, Brandon Sutter, from a possession standpoint, as per his entire career, is on the ice for the Penguins. Normally are in their own, and he's on the ice. Now, that being said, he doesn't get scored on at even strength. He just doesn't. He's been out for, I think, now the least amount of goals against on this team, and with a significant amount of even strength ice time. Now, that being said, he's not scoring either. And we just, 20 different line mates, some guys that you could make the argument shouldn't even be in the lineup on most nights. It'll do that. He's done his job. He's played 200-foot hockey, but depth scoring is important. And I think that the trades they made, were specifically out to address that. But he's still a guy you could put on the ice at the end of a game, nursing a 1-goal lead. When he goes out there, the puck's probably not going to end up in your net, and there's a lot of good to be said for that.
Now, what are your scoring expectations for him? Because I don't think anyone expects him to be Jordan Stahl. No. But, I mean, what are your expectations for him?
Well, I mean, if you go all the way back to Red Deer of the Western Hockey League, and in retrospect, when we did the draft that year, and this is probably like maybe a little bit short-sighted of me, we ranked Brandon Sutter a lot lower than we should have because he wasn't scoring goals. I mean, even at Red Deer, I think his high was 21, maybe 22. So this is a guy that didn't even score in junior. He's always been this defensive shutdown center that's great on the penalty kill and plays a mature man's game. The 200-foot style of hockey that generally goes underappreciated. So I think expectation-wise, if he's on a line that has like a Bo Bennett, even a Gibbons, like some speed, some skill, you look at him and you say he should be scoring 15 goals, 17 goals. He should be up there in that category a little bit more. The shutdown defense is great. You just got to have more goal scoring to go with it. Because right now, honestly, he's been out for more goals than he's scored. And he hasn't been out for a lot of goals against. So, I mean, it's like, that's not good. I mean, it's good that he's doing his job, but you have to have the goal scoring too.
Yeah, he's certainly doing. Brandon Sutter, 2 minutes and 41 seconds on the penalty kill tonight. And him and Gibbons, I thought Gibbons did pretty well on the penalty kill tonight. Brought a little bit of speed to the penalty kill, and Gibbons is, I never would have thought Brian Gibbons would have been part of this team this year, but he's really turned some heads, I think, and he's not a first line guy, but I give him credit for what he did there. He obviously didn't really expect too much, but there were some games where, he fit in pretty well. I would have never put him out there in the playoffs on the first line, but I think third or fourth line, I think he's done a very solid job, and even tonight, even putting him on the penalty kill, he was out there for 2 minutes and 52 seconds. So that was good to see Brian Gibbons do that. Mish, I know you're probably going to start your thoughts post very soon. How many of those penalties are you going to probably put bad, stupid? There's probably going to be a lot of them, isn't there?
I already put bad, stupid next to Neil's, Jokinen's, I think one of Malkin's. That second line is
Hey, Mish, I was just going to say that. What do all those guys have in common?
Yeah, the second line, just so much talent. When they want to take over a game, they can do it. But wow, when they lose their heads, I think it was Adam Gretz that tweeted it. The second line's great when they aren't trying to decapitate people. I don't understand how to fix it.
Jokinen cross-check, my goodness. I mean, those are some really, really bad penalties, and that's something that you just can't do. Especially, as we get in the playoffs. I mean, that could lose you games in the playoffs, and you can't do that stuff. But I absolutely agree. All those guys are, they just lose their heads. Watch out. I mean, they're gonna.
And who expects that out of UC Jokinen? I think he had a total of 6 penalties in the first half of the season.
That's true.
That's just not the type of thing you would expect to see him do.
Yeah, I just didn't believe my eyes when I saw that because he's just not that type of guy. But something, I don't know what happened there. It was weird. I really thought that once they took those bad penalties, I thought it was over because usually when they let their emotions get the best of them, it's over. But they came back and it was just a crazy game all around. I don't even know how to recap it, to be honest. It was just nuts. But as I said, the Penguins have 2 big games at home, Saturday and Sunday. And Jesse, I think you mentioned Bo Bennett earlier. Bo Bennett obviously practicing with the team now, has full clearance. Not really sure when he's going to come back, but got to think he's getting close. Jason Magna was sent down. When Bo Bennett does come back, I guess we'll start with you, Jesse. Where in the world does this guy play? I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities here. First line is a possibility, I guess, but I don't know. Stempniak has been doing pretty well up there, so I don't know if I would mess with that. But second line is a possibility. You could move Jokinen down to the third line, balance it out a little more if you want. Or you could put Bo Bennett down in the third line, which we saw a little bit last year with Dan Bilesma. Of those options, or if you have another option, which one where do you think Bo Bennett would play? Because, this guy really hasn't played all that much. I think he's played 38 games total in the NHL, and I think 12 this year. So we really haven't seen a lot of Bo Bennett. So maybe they kind of ease him into the lineup a little bit.
Yeah, well, Dan Bilesma sort of addressed this the other day. When asked that same question, he said in a very, very cryptic way, Bo Bennett's a guy who hasn't been involved in hockey since Thanksgiving. He's still got to get his timing back. He's still got to get his strength back. I would, based on that alone, expect to see him more than likely playing on the bottom six, probably in that third line role with Brandon Sutter, just to get him the ice time, get him back, into the flow of it. I think that's really what we're looking at, and which is fine. I mean, I think he's value to an area where the Penguins certainly need it. So I think that probably would be my expectation.
What about you, Mish and Casey?
Casey, go ahead.
I agree. He'll probably be on the third or fourth line, and like Jesse said, that's not a bad thing, for a guy who, when he came into the league, one of the biggest knocks against him was his defensive game. He really didn't look out of place last year once he made it to the NHL on that third line. So I'm fine with that if that's where he goes.
Yeah, I agree with them. I think the big question with Bennett is actually who is he going to knock out of the lineup? Is he going to end up on the fourth line knocking Gibbons out, or who else is possible?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. Gibbons, I know, like I said, I didn't expect Gibbons to be in the lineup, but he's been pretty solid. He even added into the penalty kill tonight, so I don't know if you take him out. He's definitely a guy that's very hungry out there right now. So that's. We know Taylor Pyatt will be staying out of the lineup, though, right?
I was going to say, you can dress Taylor Pyatt just so you can scratch him again.
A lot of people upset about Jason Magna being reassigned, and I don't know if that was a move to get Bennett back in. Obviously, Bennett's not ready yet, but I guess we'll see. Jason Magna's having a pretty good year. I would like to have him on the team, but that's just me. What were your guys' thoughts about that? Because Jason Magna, I know the Pens blog had a good article about it, and I forget where he was among the goal scorers among the Penguins, but he was in a pretty good position for how many games he has played here in the NHL, but he just continues to get sent back to the AHL. What do you think the reason for that is, Jesse?
I don't have an answer. I find it to be pretty interesting. He's had a considerable amount of success when he's been up here. And the one thing everyone said about him to start the season, and I think that the thing the Penguins sort of verbally acknowledged, was that he needed to become better defensively. And that was the big knock. Is he's got the size, he's got the pro style game. You have to do it at 200 feet, and I thought he's been great defensively. I think he's been fantastic. I don't see anything that's happened to make me think otherwise, and I don't understand what else the kid has to do to get a shot. For me, I think he's been as good, if not better, than Brian Gibbons in a lot of ways, and that's not a knock on Brian Gibbons. So I certainly a guy I think could provide some value to this team, especially at even strength.
How about you, Casey or Mish? Have anything to add?
Go ahead, Mish.
I tend to lean Gibbons in this, but in my opinion, between the two, you aren't really changing a whole lot. Either way, It's going to be a depth third or fourth line player. And Jesse, I thought you had a great tweet the other day talking about how hopefully people don't become disillusioned with the fact that Gibbons wasn't a first-line winger, because he still fits as a solid third or fourth-line winger on an NHL team. And, I mean, I like him... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was agreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, I like him in a third or fourth line role. I think he's responsible defensively. We've seen him lately on the PK. I think, honestly, that's probably what makes me lean Gibbons a little more, is just with that speed and the fact that they are willing to put him on the penalty kill now. I just like him a little better defensively. But either one of them in the lineup makes me happy, basically.
Casey?
I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, well, it's a tough call. I mean, but as you said, Mish, I mean, you're not really changing much with whoever's in there. So I guess the size of the guy, but that's about it. So I think they're both solid, and we'll see if Magna finds his way back up here. Looking ahead, as I said, Tampa Bay and St. Louis. Steven Stamkos had a hat trick last night, so it looks like he's getting back to his old self, and that's good to see. That's good for the game. Gonna be a tough challenge this weekend. What do you guys expect goaltender wise? Obviously it's a back-to-back situation. I feel like Dan Bilesma does still want to get Jeff Zatkoff in one of those games. We saw Fleury start the two in a row last weekend, then got pulled the second one, but I feel like maybe things will be different this time. You thinking Zatkoff against Tampa Bay and Fleury against St. Louis, or would it be the other way around?
I'm personally guessing the other way around, because Bob Erie made this point on the broadcast. It seems like with Zatkoff starting against Dallas that Bilesma's trying to get Fleury involved with all of the Eastern Conference teams and potential playoff teams just to make sure he's seen them recently. So based on that, I would guess Tampa ends up being Fleury's game and St. Louis goes to Zatkoff.
Yeah, both are going to be tough games. Tampa Bay has been very good this season. As I said, now they have Stamkos back, and Ryan Callahan's been contributing there. Still weird to see him there, but
that's an upgrade for them, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's done so many things well there in the short amount of time he's been there.
Yeah, I think he had a goal tonight as well, Callahan. So that was a nice pickup for them. We'll see if they can re-sign him to a long-term deal, but for now they have him, and they've won 4 straight. So Tampa Bay on a roll, and then obviously St. Louis has the most points, 101 already, and they're close to officially clinching a playoff berth soon. So that should be a fun game to watch, and so we'll see which goaltenders get in there. Gonna be, like I said, both are gonna be tough games, and you just look at the whole month the rest of the month of March is going to be a pretty tough schedule, and as we talked about earlier, I think that's a good thing for the Penguins. But quickly with the goaltending, Tomas Vokoun has been working out for a while. He's been practicing, but Jesse, do you think time is running out for Vokoun here? Because obviously, they have to activate him, and that means they're going to have to carry 3 goalies. Zatkoff can't go down because he has to clear waivers, and he probably wouldn't do that because I know some teams would love to have Jeff Zatkoff, especially now that he's signed a contract extension. I really don't know what's going to happen here with Vokoun, and even if Vokoun is good to go, I mean he's really going to be rusty, and you only have 14 games left in the season, and that obviously Bilesma wants to try to get these guys enough work, but you just can't do that with 3 goaltenders, can you?
Well, I think the question that you have to ask yourself is, the question you have to ask is how much time, and feel free to answer this, how much time does Jeff Zatkoff have to get for you to even, Tomas Vokoun have to get for you to even consider him being your backup in the playoffs?
More time than they have between now and mid-April.
Definitely. I would agree with that. It's a tough question. But I think it's definitely more, It's definitely more than what they have. So,
was that a question that you were expecting an answer to? Because I don't think any of us have one.
No, we certainly. No, I just didn't know if you guys had anything. But Yeah, I mean, I just don't. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening, and it's a shame because
It's a raw deal. I mean, it's not his fault. He just got a raw
No.
deal, plain and simple.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just a shame, but he's been trying his hardest to get back, but it may not work out. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Just a shame, and knowing what happened last year, and to see that happen, and well, we'll see what happens. That's all. We'll leave it at that. Now, Detroit with the win tonight, I think they move into the wild card spot, second wild card spot, I believe. I don't know if Columbus or Toronto were playing tonight, but those are the teams that are in front of them. So the playoff picture, I actually love NHL.com now. They have this playoffs thing. It shows you the current playoff matchups, and believe Detroit would be in the second one, so they would be against Boston. Now, obviously, these will probably change, but Eastern Conference, very interesting, and it's so weird that Detroit is battling for a playoff spot. I'm so used to them just having a playoff spot this time of the year already wrapped up, but not the case this year, and you can't blame them because of all of the injuries that they've had. Obviously, Datsuk, Zetterberg, Stephen Weiss is out, Eriksson's out for the season, so they've had a rough year. And but isn't it just weird just to see Detroit kind of battling for a spot? And I actually give them credit because they have a ton of young players in the lineup right now, and they're getting the job done. I mean, you can't expect too much out of them, but I think they've done a pretty solid job given the circumstances. But Boston with the number one spot with 99 points, Tampa Bay 83, Montreal 83, Philadelphia 79, the Rangers 78. I don't know, Philadelphia, they played, who did they play? They played tonight, right?
I'm pretty sure they won too, Andy.
Dallas. Yeah, played Dallas tonight, Philadelphia winning 4-2, so they're playing really good hockey, and that's a team that, they had such a brutal start, but now they're playing their best hockey at the right time. If they can keep it going, that is. Maybe they slump towards the end of the season, but that's a scary team right now. And a lot of people talked about how disappointing the weekend was, but anytime you lose 2 games in a row to the Flyers, yeah, it's disappointing. But I wanted to talk about this. We saw Tanner Glass on the first line with Sidney Crosby. I don't know if it was one or both games, but that just shows you right there, I wasn't really expecting much out of the Penguins that day. And, so many people talk about how Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin make Chris Kunitz and James Neal better. And, yes, that's true. But some people don't think it works the other way around. And, James Neal clearly makes Malkin better. And Chris Kunitz, man, he makes a huge difference with Sidney Crosby. I mean, Crosby's best numbers have come when he's played with Chris Kunitz. And if you compare the amount of space on the ice that Crosby has with and without Kunitz, I mean, it's a pretty big difference.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick, because you bring up a good point about Boston and Philly. Obviously red hot. Is there such a thing as peaking too early?
My counter to that question would be, what about Chicago last year when they peaked through like the first 2 months of the season, died down a little bit, and then came right back? I
agree with you, and I think the line of thinking there is that they peaked real early, kind of fell off, but got hot again at the right time. Like I don't know if I agree with that. I agree with your point. It just seems like people put quite a bit of stock into this idea that timing is everything, and I don't know how much I agree with that. I mean, to your point, Chicago last year, it was nobody. They didn't lose like for the first million games, so but they went into the playoffs on a good note too. So every team has their peaks and valleys. I'm not sure if I believe that you can start winning games at the beginning of March and not for some reason be able to carry that through the playoffs.
I think more than peaking too early, the issue is not having a valley going into the playoffs. I don't think you necessarily can I don't think it's necessarily an issue of peaking too early as long as you don't have a severe drop-off. That's my thought, at least.
I agree with you. Are the Penguins in the middle of a severe drop-off, Mish?
I mean, they're just inconsistent. I wouldn't even consider this a severe drop-off. I'm not even sure if this is a drop-off because, I mean, they looked great against Dallas, and then today was just a weird game. I'm just going to kind of throw this one out. The Philly game bothered me for effort more than anything else. So, I mean, it doesn't look like they're mentally stable by any means right now, but it just could be because of the division lead.
Yeah, I agree with you. Consistency is definitely the issue. I kind of agree with what Andy said. I didn't really expect them to win on Saturday. It's just you had that feeling. Kunitz's status was maybe a little bit up in the air, and then you find out Friday afternoon that James Neal's at the time out indefinitely, right? We didn't know that it was only going to be for the weekend, but that doesn't help. And then the line shuffle, your top line, you still got Stepniak learning to play with Crosby, and you throw Taylor Pyatt up there. Effort definitely is an issue. And I know that those types of injuries can be deflating, but they're going to happen. You have to find a way to come, especially when you're playing your arch rival. You have to get up for that game. I don't care who's in the lineup. I don't know that. I agree with Mish in that I don't think this team is in a slump. I don't think they're in a valley. I think they're playing good hockey sometimes. And when they're playing good hockey, it's really good. But they just haven't been able to piece the entire thing together yet. We're late enough in the season, in my opinion, that we can start throwing out measuring sticks. Mm-hmm. And Sunday is one for me because St. Louis is the kind of team that'll make you eat your lunch. They come, I call them the St. Louis ooze because there's just so much disgusting sandpaper on that team. It just makes me sick. And
and Steve Ott.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I think that if that game is going to tell you, every game is going to tell you a lot about the Penguins. But I think you take a look at the full 60-minute performance on Sunday. You're not going to see another situation where your playoff medal is going to be tested as much as it's going to be on Sunday.
Yeah, and Chicago and St. Louis just faced each other. Chicago 4-0 was a little bit surprised with that one, and I thought maybe that would have been a better game, but that happens. Chicago and St. Louis clearly the top two in the West, and could be the top two in hockey right now, with Boston and Pittsburgh the tops in the East. But that West, those guys are going to beat each other up in the playoffs. That's for sure. But yeah, St. Louis, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and whoever's going to that game should be in for a good one. We'll see what goaltender goes in there. We talked about Lee Stempniak a little bit. We saw that he had a goal tonight, and I know some of us have tweeted about this. What have you seen from his play so far? Obviously, he's been doing pretty well the past few games on that Crosby line. Had a great game against Dallas the other night, and then had a really, really nice deflection goal tonight. I mean, I think he just kind of fits that the style of play needed for that right side on Sidney Crosby's line. Just maybe deliver a hit, go to the net pretty much, and give Sid the puck. And I think that he's done a good job of that. And some people try to do a little bit more, try to be a little bit more fancy, but I think Lee Stempniak has done a pretty solid job. And Stempniak's been in the league for a little while now, but he in Calgary he probably had to rely on himself a little bit more, and here he can just kind of play with Crosby, give him the puck, and open up some space for him. But he's been doing some good things as well. And I think you had tweeted something about him, Jesse, recently, if I'm not mistaken. I could be totally wrong, but he seems to be a good fit for that line right now, just the way that he's playing.
Jesse just abandoned his computer temporarily, so I will step in for this one.
Can I add a question to that?
Go for it.
Is it just me, or is Stepniak probably the closest thing they can get to a Dupuis replacement that was available?
I mean, it would make sense because he's a PK guy as well. Not that we've used him there, but he has good speed. He goes to the front of the net. Honestly, he does the simple things. He keeps his stick down. He's always looking up, looking for Sid. Anytime Kunitz has the puck, we saw them try it again today. Kunitz had the puck around the top of the right faceoff circle, and Stepniak went straight to the net. Kunitz just tried to thread it to him for a redirect there. There seems to be a lot of chemistry on that top line already. And again, Stepniak just keeps his stick down, goes to the places he should go. When you're playing with Crosby and Kunitz, they'll make it happen for you.
Yeah, I like the fit on there a lot, and I was so happy because we had that little hold up when we didn't know if the Stempniak trade was going to happen or not because they said we heard it was close, and then we didn't hear anything for a while, and then finally we heard that they were going through the trade call. So I was very happy that Stempniak got here because, as you said a while, Mish, before the trade deadline, this team desperately needed just winger depth, and Stempniak and Marcel Gotch provided that. Now, Gotch, I know, was in your bad section, Mish, last game, and you said that he was probably somewhere in between noteworthy and bad. What have you seen from him so far, and what are your thoughts on his play since coming to the Penguins?
I mean, I've been happy with him in general. Honestly, putting him in the bad section last game was kind of nitpicky just because there wasn't a lot of bad, and he's the only guy that I really had turning the puck over. This game, I thought he did great. Even if you look at that first period, it was the first two lines that first two shifts Gotch's line had. Both shifts were around 45 seconds, and both pinned Detroit in their own end for quite a while. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking for, and it's something we haven't had out of the bottom six at all. So to see his line, I don't know if it's a third line or a fourth line at this point, but whatever line it is, if they can get the puck in the offensive zone and keep it there for even 20 seconds, that's more than what the bottom six has been doing. So it already looks like a great upgrade.
And you know what, Mish? That's all you really need right now. I mean, you get those offensive chances. If you keep the puck in the zone, offensive chances are going to come naturally from that. If you get the puck to the net, you play that ugly style third, fourth line hockey. Goals, look at tonight, for example. I mean, goals come from everywhere. So, I mean, that's all we really need right now. We just need, I think Dan Bilesma's, I don't want to say kind of hidden the third and fourth lines this year, but he's playing them against the other team's third and fourth lines. And they haven't put the results up against competition that, you supposedly say is similar. So even if you could just get that little bit of possession out of them, I think that's a massive improvement.
Yeah, and Jesse, while you ran away, they wanted to ask you about Stempniak as well. So what are your thoughts on him?
I got an emergency phone call there. Listen, I love Lee Stempniak. I've been a Lee Stempniak fan. I tweeted this out. I talked to a buddy of mine who works in junior hockey in Alberta. He's a huge Flames fan. And I said on trade deadline day, because, I don't know about you guys, I'm not watching the Flames all that much. I said, what are we getting here out of Lee Stempniak? And he goes, knowing what I know, about the city of Pittsburgh, they're going to love him. Blue collar guy, just comes to work every day. And he said when things were bad in Calgary and nobody wanted to deal with the media, he's the last guy off the ice. He's never complaining about anything, talks to the media every night, just acted like a professional. And I think that's what the Penguins got. You can't – it's not easy to play with Sidney Crosby. Look at the Olympics. Those are the best players in the world. And Mike Babcock shuffling his lines for 3 or 4 games trying to find something that works. So I think Lee Stempniak's come in. He's taken an easy approach to it. Play the body, give the puck to Sid, go to the net, put your stick down and get open. I think Chris Kunitz, guys, has developed into more of a goal scorer than any of us ever imagined. Watch Chris Kunitz play. He still does Chris Kunitz things, but he hunts open space. You see him floating into the slot with his stick up, ready for that pass. He's learned how to play with Sidney Crosby. He's learned how to get scoring opportunities out of it. I think Lee Stempniak is playing the Chris Kunitz role on this line right now, and it's worked out perfectly. And I think it's a perfect fit for what they want. And no offense to Bo Bennett. If you isolate the time And I know it's not a lot of games, but if you isolate the time of Chris Kunitz, Lee Stempniak, and Sidney Crosby, at no point this season, even with Pascal Dupuis, have they had better numbers. They're spending a lot of time in the offensive zone. They're not playing defense much, and they're scoring goals. That's great. I mean, you can't get any better than that. So I'm not touching that until something. Don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think it's been and even going into next year when Dupuis comes back, you can keep a guy like a Stempniak. That's an excellent third line addition.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I think he has been a perfect addition. Let's hope the success continues. As there was a lot of discussion before the trade deadline of how the Penguins are just so top heavy. But do you guys kind of still have that feeling now? I mean, I know Lee Stempniak went to the first line, but now you have Marcel Gottsch there on the third line, and Brandon Sutter was moved to third line B, I guess you could call it. Do you still have that feeling? I mean, I know they're probably going to get a ton of they're going to rely on that top six a lot, obviously. But do you have enough now with these additions? And kind of shuffling the lineup a little bit? Do you have a little bit more confidence that they can get some secondary scoring from that bottom six? Saw Craig Adams get a goal tonight, first time in 65 games. So, I mean, obviously you don't expect that too often, but some of those other guys, they always say, that the third line that can win you some playoff series, and we've seen that here in Pittsburgh a lot, even